everyone. Welcome back to EP4 in our series From Traffic to Growth. Now, today is all about action, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here with David from ShopperTrak. And David, I feel like, each episode we've been building towards something. And when I look back, we started with traffic. We put some framework around how our universes collide, basically. And then we looked at the non-buyer behavior, where we had some really interesting feedback after the episode. And last time we talked about what customer frustration is really telling you and why scores alone don't go far enough. So today it makes sense for us to close all of that loop, because I'll often be hearing from retail leaders that they say, look, Julian, we have enough data. We're just not sure what to do with it. It's really getting the best return on effort. And I think that's the most important problem in retail right now, not a lack of information, but a lack of clarity on what to do next. So David, does that match what you're hearing?
Completely, and it's actually what drives most of the conversations I'm having at the moment. Labor is the number one topic. Every retailer is under pressure to make every rostered hour count. And what they want from data isn't more reports, it's answers, and specifically are people in the right place at the right time doing the right things. That's three questions, and most businesses can only answer one of them.
All right, makes sense. Let's jump right off. Which one do they get right?
The first one, roughly, they know they need people in the store. The second one, right time, is where it starts to fall apart, because intuition and experience can only take you so far. And the third one, right things, that's almost always the blind spot.
Interesting. And that's exactly the gap we're going to tackle head on today. Because I think when you put the ShopperTrak world and the feedback ASAP world together, you start to answer all three of those questions properly, possibly for the first time.
So let's start with the right time problem, because this is where traffic intelligence really earns its place. One of the most valuable metrics within Stan, that's ShopperTrak's analytics platform, is power hours. And power hours identify peak selling times during the week, the periods where traffic or customer traffic that is at its highest and sales opportunities are most concentrated. And when retailers see this data for the first time, it's often genuinely confronting, because the hours they thought were productive and the hours that actually drive revenue aren't always the same thing. We were looking at some live examples recently. A retail store where traffic consistently peaked between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. with the strongest conversion window sitting between 1 and 3. Saturday was the standout, around 3.5% of the total weekly traffic concentrated in that 2-hour window alone. So the insight was simple here. It's where traffic and opportunity are concentrated, and that's where retailers need to focus their people, service levels, and operational execution.
And I guess it makes sense, right? So if your best people aren't on the floor during that window.
Well, look, you're going to be leaving money on the table every single week without knowing it. And because you're identifying your power hours is only half the story. STAR, which is the shopper to associate ratio, shows whether you have the right level of staffing during those peak demand periods, measuring the average number of shoppers each associate must service every hour.
Yeah, and I guess, look, naturally it's going to take, therefore, the rostering, the whole nature of rostering from gut feel to much more of a data decision.
Yeah, exactly. And it's when you make that shift, when you start aligning your labor to traffic reality, rather than last week's sales figures, the improvement in productivity is almost immediate. We had a retailer who found out that on Wednesday lunchtimes, they were systematically understaffed during their peak conversion window. Small change to the roster, measurable improvement in weekly conversion within a fortnight.
Wow, that's really powerful, isn't it? So that really is the power of having the right data, of course. David, and this is where I want to push the conversation further today, right into the sort of tin tacks of what we need to know, what we need to do next. But, knowing when to have people on the floor is really only half the answer, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think this is the most important thing we've talked about across the whole series, because you can have the right number of people on the floor at exactly the right time and still have a poor result, and they're not having the right conversations.
Yeah, and this is where Feedback ASAP's role becomes really clear, because ShopperTrak really answers the when and how many, and we answer the what. what are customers experiencing right now and what's driving people who love you to come back? These are your advocates. It's absolutely critical you know this. And what's stopping people who nearly bought from committing? And what's exciting, and this is genuinely new for us, is that we have now launched all of the key features in our Results Booster Hub.
Tell me more, because I think this is the piece that's been missing from the conversation.
Yeah, and look, we've had lots of conversations between you and I offline, but we've built and coached our own custom AI to do something that we find no standard survey tool or NPS platform really does. It processes thousands of real customer feedback responses, which, keep in mind, are coming our way by way of video, voice, and text. And it doesn't just classify sentiment as positive, negative, or neutral. It identifies the specific key themes that's driving that sentiment. So the subtlety of what's actually being said. So when a store manager logs into the hub now, they don't just see a score. They see something much more valuable. They see exactly what their local customers are loving, the specific things that are driving that advocacy and positive word of mouth right now. And they see exactly what their local customers are concerned about, the themes that are quietly costing them lots of money and at times loyalty. So in real time, it's already analysed and it's already prioritised.
Yeah, so it's not asking the manager to interpret data, it's doing all that work for them.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think it comes down to this: clarity replaces noise, because we recognize that it's not the manager's job to be a data analyst, right? Their job's leading, managing, and motivating a team and serving customers. So we go one step further, because insight without action is just expensive reading.
Yeah, it sure is. So which is the problem with most CX platforms, isn't it? So they give you the report and then they leave you to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. So what we've built now is a direct link from insight to the learning piece as well. So our AI has identified the theme. Let's say customers are not being offered all of the products to solve their problem. The hub doesn't just flag that and kind of leave them alone. It connects the accountable team member directly to the learning they need to fix it. So that learning may come via their own LMS modules, so it's directly linked, or it's serving up some of the micro-learning content right there in the hub. So the journey is this in simple terms. The customer says something, we listen, learn, and take action, right? The AI identifies the theme. The manager sees that with clarity. The team member gets on with the learning. Behaviour starts to change. So those accountable actions are managed right there in the hub. No gap, no delay, no hoping someone reads a report and acts on it, right?
Yeah, that's the loop most retailers have never been able to close. They get the feedback, they maybe share that headline, and then nothing changes on the floor.
Yeah, because without clarity and without a direct path to action, nothing really will change. The insight sits in a dashboard and very often just fades, and we move on to the next month, the next quarter, or whatever. So what we've built is the thing that connects that insight to behaviour, and really it comes down to this: only big action drives big growth. So it's the behaviour piece that drives the growth.
Let's talk about what this means for revenue, because labor optimization and learning are the means, but the end for every retailer leader is sales. And the ATV conversation is a really important one here, because most retailers are focused on conversion and getting people to buy something. But the second lever, average transaction value, is often where the faster win sits.
Exactly. And we definitely see ATV and conversion kind of wrapped around one another. It's really important. They're not separate things. They're very much connected. It comes back to those moments, right? Those specific moments in the customer's conversation and the interactions they're having with the team member, where the revenue either grows or it doesn't. Our AI is now identifying those moments in customer feedback with remarkable precision. And what we're finding is three things are coming up again and again when it comes to ATV underperformance. It's probably more than three, but just to illustrate, the first would be some form of quote that goes as follows: I knew what I wanted, but the person I spoke to didn't make me feel confident about the decision. So it's not necessarily wrong information or a bad attitude, but there's a missing moment of reassurance that would have unlocked the purchase. The second's really interesting. It's nobody showed me anything I hadn't already seen online. Customers are extremely well researched in the main. So the customer came in specifically hoping for something in the experience that provides them more than the website could have given them. And the team member just didn't deliver that. And the third, and this is pure ATV, really is I would have bought more. I just didn't know what else went with it. So the add-on conversation really never happened. There's a lack of questions, perhaps, that relates back to understanding their needs. It led to an underpowered demonstration or recommendation of the products. And then it just, came unraveled from there, right? So a lack of suitable add-ons, which meant the customer didn't buy what was recommended.
Yeah. And that third one, that's revenue that was right there in the room.
Yeah, right there. I mean, the customer was ready, virtually speaking, they had their wallet out and the team member didn't ask that one more question. So now imagine that insight, a customer who's ready to purchase, but the add-on conversation never happening. If you could surface that by way of the hub and the AI tools, then you can immediately start to connect that skill gap to micro-learning or to the LMS and start to really build confidence so that the team members have those conversations with the customers. So now every team member, every store, your whole network is working with a mindset of ongoing improvement, right? So it's aligned to the same opportunity, and they start acting on that as soon as the feedback starts to come into the business.
Yeah. And from the ShopperTrak side, we can validate that because dwell time data consistently shows that customers who spend more time in meaningful engagement spend more. So you've got the behavioral signal from us, the customer lingered, they were engaged, they were ready, and you've got the customer voice from Feedback ASAP telling you what the team needed to do in that moment. So together, that's a complete picture.
That's very powerful, and you can drill right down into it, store by store, theme by theme, down to specific feedback on a particular topic at a particular location. So, if a state manager or a regional manager is inquiring here, now they can actually look at performance across their region. A store manager can see what their customers specifically are saying, and a team member can get to the learning that's right for them. Not generic training modules that have nothing to do with their store or, more importantly, for them personally. The Hub's Moment of Truth report gets right down to the behavioral standards, down to an individual salesperson's level. So now the managers can coach that pattern of behavior and genuinely help them to improve.
Yeah. I want to ask you something that comes up in my conversations all the time, because I think a lot of leaders hears and think, look, that sounds great, but how long does this take?
Yeah, and I'm going to be a bit cheeky and answer that how long's a piece of string, because the time question comes up in two different ways. Let me answer the first. So for teams in store and for managers who are already busy, the question will come up, well, how much more does this add to my life, basically? And just to illustrate this, it's really part of operating rhythm. So it comes down to kind of what do I do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. On a daily basis, it's a matter of minutes. Listen, learn, and act on the customer feedback. It's served right up for you. It's something that is available in real time. The end of the week, reinforce the positives and really recognize your champions. So in your team huddle, that information is available and you can jump right on it to really amplify what you want to see more of. And then that monthly, quarterly cycle, typically that's going to be some form of review with your regional or state manager, whatever the sort of arrangement is there. But again, it's easy for you because it's laid out. You can look at pattern of behavior. You can start to look at some of the linkages to growth. We keep it simple. Our strong recommendation is really land on one priority per team member per quarter, not 10 things, one thing. Then have an action plan around that. I mentioned two things. The second piece is really where you have no program in place or you have very much a score chasing program, and then you start to shift to this sort of growth or improvement program. How long does it take to start to see results? And the good news really is that in our experience, it's very much a matter of weeks rather than months and quarters. So you don't have sort of a delayed reaction as everything becomes clearer and people are starting to take action on the priorities that matter most to customers. Surprise, surprise, you actually start to see the growth kick in. It's also worth mentioning, just on the heels of this, people are busy and they're moving around the store and around the region if they're a state or regional manager. So all of this is something that is easy to do both on mobile phone and on computer. So it's very adapted to the real world situations where people are busy right now. So again, the focus is there, but it's one of those things where you can get traction and see growth quickly.
Yeah, quick. That's great. And from a ShopperTrak side, and traffic intelligence, power hours, start, behavioral data from Orbit AI and Video AI, all of that is available to start informing rostering and labor decisions from day one. So you're not waiting for a long implementation before you see that value. The insight starts to flow immediately, and then it just compounds.
Yeah, it's exactly right, and it's fantastic to see just how fast people can get up and running as well with the ShopperTrak program, and I think that word compound is so important to just call out there, because as more feedback comes in, in the hub, the AI gets more precise, the themes become clearer. But it's really the connection between what customers are saying and what the team members are doing and what they're learning that matters most, because that's what's actually going to drive that behavior change. It's the right conversations happening at the right time, and the data from both sides starts to move the business in the right direction. And so I guess the outcome of that, the growth outcomes of that are very clear. Conversions up, ATVs up, customer sentiment is up, and labor efficiency starts to improve. So that's the outcome: clarity, action, and ultimately growth.
Well, clarity, action, and growth, I think it's a perfect way to frame what we've been building towards in this series, because retailers who are going to pull ahead aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest budgets or the most locations. They're the ones who are clearest on what's happening, the fastest to act on it, and most consistent in building the habits that drive results.
Yeah, and it's just so important to put a full stop on this, to say that the tools to do all of this exist right now. They're not complicated. I also want to mention that integration is really important. In our world, we call this one voice, and it allows us to connect the foot traffic, the customer experience piece, e-learning, Google reviews, Trustpilot, a whole lot, and much more, so that things are connected and things are very actionable. David, this must be one of our best episodes yet.
Yeah, look, I think so too, Julian. The combination of what we can bring now together is something really retail hasn't seen before. Traffic intelligence that tells you when and where, customer voice that tells you why and what to do, and learning that closes that loop on the floor. That's a genuinely new conversation for our industry.
Yeah, it really is. And look, one thing we know is that each business is quite different. The culture is quite different. So if we've touched on some topics today and you'd like to find out more about that, following this video, there will be a means to reach out to David or myself. Please do that. Let's have a conversation, because it's a matter of making this fit within your culture. It's an absolutely critical part of it. So thank you, everyone. We will see you again next time.